really, really exciting panel tonight, Women in Sustainability. Thrilled to have all of these fabulous women on the chat with us this evening throughout. So all of you get the most out of this experience. You can use the chat box. If there's any bits of conversation going on that you want to delve a little bit more into, we'll do a little Q&A at the end at about 8:15 as well. So yeah, if there's a specific reason that you're here, maybe you're looking to switch your career up and go in a more sustainable direction, maybe you're already there and you just want a little bit of the sisterhood to get you remotivated, re-energized, keep you going for your next chapter, we're here for all of that tonight. So do get in touch in the chat box, let us know where you're tuning in from, and we're going to kick things off. My name is Fingal. I'm a broadcaster and an absolute sustainability fanatic. A lot of people are always like, okay, you've done a lot of entertainment reporting, where did environment come into all of this? So I suppose I've been interviewing all these different Marvel superstars, whatever else, all pretending to save the planet, and I just more and more was finding the people in the climate crisis on the front line of that actually saving the planet far more interesting. So I'm really excited to talk to some of the women who are doing just that this evening. So I might just do a little run around here and get everyone to introduce themselves really briefly before we kick things off. I might start with you, Pat Kane. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, Fionnuala. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. My name is Pat. I am the founder of Reusey, Ireland's one-stop shop for sustainable living products. I'm also a sustainability strategist, having worked with some businesses of different sizes over the past 5 years. I write for the Irish Tatler, and I do a lot around just like talks and just coming in and trying to help from a sustainable living point of view.
Amazing. And Sorcha Kavanagh, I will go to you next.
Hi, Fionnuala. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Sorcha Kavanagh, and I, in a previous life, looked after and managed the Conscious Cup campaign for 5 years. And I'm now with Repack, and I'm a membership executive, and I work with all of our members to drive reduction in plastic. And in a previous lifetime, I also worked in plastic packaging for about 8 and 9 years, and that was actually invaluable in learning about how business operates. And yeah, delighted to be here. Thank you.
Amazing. And Mindy O'Brien, on to you next.
Thanks, Fionnuala. I'm delighted to be here. I'm Mindy O'Brien. I'm the Chief Executive of Voice. We're an environmental charity, and our vision is a world without waste. We work a lot on waste policy, both on a national and international level, EU level. We also do a lot of community engagement and a lot of different campaigns, such as Sick of Plastic campaign. We have a Return for Change for a deposit return scheme. Our Picker Pals program, of course, we have the Conscious Cup campaign as well. And my background is that I've been in the environmental field for 30 years. I'm very old in comparison to all of you, starting, and I worked in the US Congress for years, and Voice is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year.
Woo, happy birthday.
Thank you.
And Eva O'Brien, last but by no means least.
Hi, everybody, and delighted to be here as well. My name is Eva O'Brien. I am a co-founder of Food Cloud, and our vision is for a world where no good food goes to waste. So we're a little bit of a different approach than Voice, but similar ethos. We redistribute food from the food industry to the charity sector, and we do that through a technology platform. And we also have 3 warehouses in Dublin, Galway and Cork that take large volumes of food and redistribute at charities. And our technology has been expanding internationally over the last number of years as well. So our whole aim is to make sure that as much food as possible is eaten and enjoyed and not wasted.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Sarah Quigley there said the chat is currently disabled, so attendees can't say hello, but she has managed to say hello. So if there's a way that we can get that turned on, that would be marvelous. But we will carry on now and chat about how we all got into this space and what inspired us to start off. I'm sure there's a lot of people tuned in tonight who are coming to this from very different backgrounds. So I'd love to hear, Pat, maybe starting with you. I know motherhood was a huge influence on the chapter of the sustainability journey that you're on at the moment. So you might tell us a bit more about that. Oh, you're just on mute there as well.
Sorry. Oh, the joys. So yeah, as you said, Fionnuala, my family, my 2 little boys, you know, and their generation, obviously big inspiration, right? With a baby arriving at your house for the first time, in my case, I was like, oh my God, so much love coming in, but also so much waste, so much like so many unwanted, but lovely gifts, as I always say, you know. So I started to think about the bigger picture, and I was like, look, my husband and I, we kept a very minimal lifestyle until the baby arrived, and we're like, obviously this is not going to work, we need to do better, you know. And I suppose as someone who has lived in a few different countries around the world, you know, I was always very fascinated by the beauty and abundance all over the world. We have everything we need, don't we? Yet we're trashing it. So to me, you know, seeing people not caring enough, littering all over the place, you know, I felt like I needed to overcompensate on their behalf. And this whole thing came together. I was like, let me go back to school, see what this is all about, and who knows, start a business. And then Reusey was born.
Amazing. And your consultancy work is flying now as well. And no doubt we'll chat about that a little bit more later. Mindy, you came over from Congress. I know you're doing loads of work there, which is so, so exciting. And you found your tribe with Voice Ireland back in the 90s, and that kicked off here. Tell us a little bit more about how your sustainability journey started.
Oh goodness, it's so long ago. I think I worked in Capitol Hill. I worked for members of Congress. And I just remember hearing snippets that they were working on the Clean Air Act, and they were way back in the 90s, and working on the Safe Drinking Water Act and Clean Water Act. And I just started to get interested then. And I think for me, how I got into the waste is I remember hiking in the mountains of Wyoming, and we were coming down pristine, and I started seeing Coke cans. And I thought, oh, this is just horrible. You know, why are people leaving their rubbish around? It just really resonated with me. And then I just slowly got into the environmental field. I went to law school in Oregon and focused on environmental law. So that started back in the 1990s. So back then it was kind of a fledgling kind of interest back when I started working in the environment. And when Voice started, we were kind of the Birkenstock wearing, you know, tree hugging kind of weirdos. And so it's really nice to see that the environmental issue has become center stage and is a mainstream issue.
Fabulous. And no doubt we will talk about that shift more as we go on. Even I'm so intrigued in the social enterprise. You've been at it 10 years now. I would love to know how this all kicked off. Was a college project? Was that your first intro to sustainability? Or how did you even know about food waste back then? It's obviously really big in our collective conscious now. But yeah, you just seem so ahead of the curve with that.
Yeah, so I actually was working in investment banking in London, which is very different from what I'm doing now, but got exposed to a team sitting around the corner from me were the environmental and social risk team within a bank, which I was intrigued as what they were doing. And I managed to get a placement in that team, and it was basically looking at like environmental and social risks associated with mines in Africa and dams in China. And it just blew my mind. I'd always been interested in sustainability and environment, but I had no idea, I suppose, of the scale and consequences of what we were actually doing to the planet. And at the same time, I always had an interest in food and food sustainability. So at that time, back in like it was 2009, it was Lehman Brothers, it was fairly, you know, I suppose recessionary times. There was a lot of food sharing activities happening in the UK around London. They were very trendy and hip and really interesting. And I moved back to Ireland, and I was really surprised, but there was really nothing happening in London. So yeah, it started as a college project. Actually, me and Mindy go back to that time because there was a group of us that were working on both the idea of the warehouses and the retail technology platform. So it was, I suppose, realizing a growing awareness of the scale of the problem of food waste from that time in London, and then recognizing that Ireland was doing nothing. And as a country with such a rich heritage in food and agriculture, I thought this was crazy. So initially we were trying to work with people that were already doing something in the area, but it was very limited. So yeah, that's how we had to get started. And the environment environmental community is small. So Mindy and myself would have been involved in getting the warehouse side of things up and running, and Iselt and I were setting up the retail technology platform. So our first donation was in June 2012 from Glasnevin Farmers Market to a youth club in a youth centre in Drumcondra. And I suppose we're delighted with ourselves, but realized that, you know, if this was at one Saturday and one market, can you imagine how much food is wasted elsewhere? So that's how it started. Obviously it's gone from there, but I won't go into all of the details now. But that it really started very small scale, just trying to make a difference. And, you know, I don't think we would have predicted, you know, the journey that we've been on since then if we had a crystal ball at that point.
Incredible. I think I listened to something you did with Matt Cooper recently, and I think it's about 1 million meals a day that you're making sure are not wasted at the moment, which is just mind-boggling to think about. Such a huge impact. And then Circa, we have similar people involved that have influenced our sustainability journey. I know Mary Robinson was crucial to you many moons ago. Back when I was 5, I went to write a letter to her that we needed to quit cars. We all had to give up our cars and we had to go back to ponies. Now, this is half out of my distaste for cars and what they were doing to the planet, and half for my want of a pony. Can you tell me a little bit more about your encounter with her and how she influenced your sustainability journey?
Yeah, so God, I'm going back to the late 80s actually, and when you're a teenager, you're extremely impressionable, you know. And I was in 5th year in school, and I grew up in a working class area where we went to community school, mixed students, and we had a couple of teachers who'd actually gone off to work in South Africa to support, you know, what was going on there. And one of them, who was incredible, had come back, and she set up this whole fair trade. It was very, very early days fair trade movement within the school. So we had created a whole display of items that had been made in South Africa, and we were going to sell them. And it was quite ahead of its time, really, when you look back then, you know. So Mary Robinson had just become president, and we didn't know, but she was invited out. So we were all gathered for this big event, you know, in the gymnasium. And next thing we see all these cars streaming in. She was coming to visit us. And it was just phenomenal, because we're talking about women in sustainability. She was the icon, really, at the end of the day, coming out to visit us, and she'd literally only become president. So she inspired an awful lot of us, I think, particularly in that era. You know, she was all about that social justice aspect as well. So that was one of the major influences, but the other one was my first job, like as maybe 16 years of age. I was in 3rd year in school, and my aunt had actually set up a body shop, another woman, and the body shop in Ireland, she had started that off. But the body shop in itself was one of the most original businesses set up on a refill system by Anita Roddick. So I was really inspired by Anita Roddick. I'd be in the Grafton Street store refilling perfume bottles of White Busk and Dewberry, and I'd stink on the diesel bus going home. But the whole idea of, you know, refilling and people bringing in your own containers and reuse, and, you know, again, a fair trade message, and it was very much built on social justice. And that was all prior to, you know, Fair Trade Fortnight, because that only started in about 92. So that went on to kind of creating Blanchardstown Environmental Group, which was way ahead of its time. That I probably stayed with that till I was about 18 or 19, but some great work going on there in the early days. And then I went to work in plastic packaging for quite a long time. So it was great to actually get that insight of what's going on the ground, what's possible, what's not. I suppose my later days then was Conscious Cook campaign for about 5 years, and great things that I've learned through that, but especially through working with industry, which is what I really like to do, because if we get all on board and collaborate, you can drive that whole change all around. So yeah, it's been a great journey though.
Amazing. Really, really cool to see the kind of resurgence of refill and the mainstreaming of that recently as well. Now, such a promising direction that we're going in there. No doubt we'll talk more about the circular economy later. If anyone else would like to come in with any inspiring people who have informed their sustainability journey, I would love to hear about them, and no doubt everyone tuned in would love to hear as well.
I have one for you, Fanula. There is a lady in Brazil. Her name is Fernanda Cortes. And just like the Conscious Cup campaign, she came up with this program called One Less Piece of Rubbish. Well, that's a very poor translation, but that's the name. And she came up with those, you know, the Stojo cups, the silicone ones, the collapsible ones. Yeah. So she basically went somewhere, sourced them, and she started going around banging on like newspapers doors, you know, radio stations and whatnot. And she's like, this is all you need. It's one less piece of rubbish. And, you know, you can do this. It's all basically inspiring individual change by like, and using the cup to represent that change. And I thought it was so great. I remember I was pregnant when I was about to launch Re-Easy, right? And as I was writing like what I wanted Re-Easy to be, etc., I came across her and she was just launching as well. And I was like, this is amazing with one product, because I was trying to figure out a portfolio of products, right? But this woman with one product, she's literally driving change. She's going around TV shows and writing books and protesting, you know, like she was going on the streets and all. So I was like, this is so inspiring. I thought this was incredible, you know, and I looked up to her so much so that then I got in touch with her eventually and explained, you know, look, you've been a great example to me. So it's one, obviously all her comms are in Portuguese, but if anybody wants to learn more, I'm happy to introduce you to this lady.
Amazing. And would anyone else like to come in on that?
For me, it's not just one person. I've been really inspired by a group that we're involved with. It's called Break Free from Plastic. It's a global organization. It was founded maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and we're part of the European branch, and whenever we get together, I am so inspired. But every person, you know, you're working with people from Ukraine, from Slovenia, from France, Spain, Portugal. All these people come together and they share their stories and the accomplishments that they're achieving in their countries, and I just am so inspired. A lot of young people who are just working so hard and trying to make the world a better place, and they really do inspire me.
Amazing. I think it's fantastic when you find people like that who really give you that energy back. We'll talk about it a little bit later on, but I think burnout kind of in the climate space and just maintaining your resilience is something that can be really, really tricky when things seem very, very grim. But yeah, any of those people that you can find that just give you loads of energy and get you buzzed back about everything again are fantastic. I found loads of them in my master's. And I think if I was to pick one person who's influenced my sustainability journey the whole way along, it'd probably be my mom. She was always the one encouraging like the nature table and bringing us out on all these walks, and she could name everything in the garden and nothing went to waste in our house. I think Irish people, like, waste isn't innately in our culture, but it's obviously been brought in over the last few decades with convenience and everything. So I'm very happy now to see it being re-engineered back out of our systems. So long may that continue. Mindy, I might throw this one next to you. I think community and the collective are really, really important in the climate space. And I'm just so intrigued as to how you moved over to Ireland in the 90s and then found people in Voice. I think now through my own sustainability journey, I managed to find a lot of that tribe on social media. And as I just mentioned there, with going back to college to study it as well, I found more people there. But sharing everything I loved about sustainable fashion, I found this amazing community online. I'm just wondering how you found your community over here when you came here.
Oh goodness. Okay, so I came here in 97, and I had a 6-month-old child, and I had just left Congress and moved here and didn't have a job, didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I wanted to volunteer. I was actually, I think, in a doctor's office, and I saw an old newsletter. It was a magazine article actually, and I had been working a lot on water issues, and so I looked down. I read it was an article about Voice that Voice had just launched because we are the successor to Greenpeace. And so Greenpeace closed up its shop and then gave money to Voice that started up. And so I read about Voice. So the next day I reached out to them and on a phone call and said, I'd like to volunteer. And so I just started out as a volunteer at Voice, and that was my environmental outlet. I had my baby, but that's just my environmental outlet. And I've gone from volunteer to board member to chair of the board to now the chief executive. So I've been with Voice for 25 years.
Amazing. And Sorcha, you've huge experience with community groups as well and finding different kind of tribes of people through that. Do you have any advice maybe for people listening in who maybe haven't found that tribe yet, or they want to get more involved in things, be it locally, nationally, or online in any regard?
I think it's really important that you do find your tribe, because it's very isolating if you don't. And for your mental health, it's really important that you align yourself with people that have the same values. But like what Mindy was saying there, starting out as volunteer is definitely the way forward. So if you have a particular area that you're interested in the environment, you know, there's so many groups out there. There are lots of groups, and there are so many, you know, corporates as well, and companies who are actually creating their own green teams, who want, you know, to ensure it's part of their internal marketing as well, that, you know, so many employees want to create change from within. So you could look at creating a green team within your own organization. There's plenty of volunteers across the various different departments as well. And those chats often start over a cup of coffee at your lunchtime in your workplace, you know. It's amazing what can build from just two people having a conversation. But for anyone who doesn't feel that they can do that within their workplace, go online and find a group that you could connect with, that you would like to join, even if it's your local community and you're starting something through a biodiversity group. They tend to all have similar interests as well. It is that para community, I think, and it gives you, certainly, like, especially with COVID and difficult times ahead, you need that strength together, I think, you know.
Absolutely. And speaking of COVID, we've just come out of it and we've seen this huge surge in the Great Resignation. I think people really reevaluated what they're doing, what they care about now, where they want to spend their time, and to what end, what is the purpose of the work that they're doing. With that, I imagine a lot of the people here are maybe looking to pivot into more sustainable careers, or maybe they're in a workplace and they want to make it greener. I know Ali Sheridan is brilliant. She always says, you don't need to quit your job. Any job can be a green job. But I'm just wondering, I'm sure there's maybe some fellow entrepreneurs here who would like to just jump, make a leap, do those different kind of sustainable jobs. I'm wondering, given each of your different experiences, if there's any advice or any opportunity that you see in the sustainability space over the coming months and years that people could leap into. And Pat, having started your own entrepreneurial empire now with your consultancy business taking off after Reusey as well, you might have advice for people looking to go down that avenue.
Yeah, like, I suppose, you know, like almost like Sorka, you know, I come from a background that it's not necessarily, obviously I was working in customer experience for a big gambling business, Irish business, you know, right before that I was in telecommunications for 10 years. So I just sat there one day and I was like, look, I want to do something different. In my case, I didn't turn my old job green, like Ali would say. I just went for something completely different. You know, I decided to go back to school and learn about it, because there's a lot being said out there, blogs and Instagram pages and all of that stuff. But I think, you know, for us to be able to talk about it, you know, properly, and, you know, understand what's going on and not fall for like stories that might not be really like relevant. I think it's important to get a bit of formal education there. So that's very important. I always say help is one DM, one email, one call away in Ireland. So I reached out to people, you know, again, trying to find my tribe. And it's funny because it was only 5 years ago, but it feels like it's been 3,000 years, because there's so many people out there doing great work. And a lot of us have been growing together over the past 5 years. So reached out to people with similar values and businesses that work, like, give or take similar, you know, going through the same, I suppose, process. And then again, you know, just have a very clear goal. In my case, I really wanted my problem. And again, as a customer experience professional, I always say that my experience as a customer for sustainable goods had been quite fragmented. So I wanted to go out there and create something that's like, I'm going to one place, I'm going to learn about, you know, what else can I do? And that's why we have a huge focus on education through Reusey, social media, blog, etc. And then if I do need something, it's not like, and then I will buy something. And it is, if I do need something to kickstart my journey, then I'll know where to find. So I wanted to create that based on my need. And then it turned out a lot of people had similar problems, and here we are, you know.
Amazing. And I think solving a problem is a great place to start. If there's anyone listening who has maybe identified a problem in the climate space, I think the advice you're giving about some education is brilliant. I felt the same when I kind of quit fast fashion and gone vegan and was talking about it in social media. And then I saw after the first lockdown that despite none of us leaving the house and no airplanes taking off, that we still hadn't reduced our emissions enough. I was like, okay, I have got to go back to college and figure out what is going on and what we have to do. So I would definitely recommend anyone to look into courses if they can. But even from a solutions focused space, I'd love to hear your insights as to, obviously, if anyone else sees a problem that they can fix, your experience of making this incredible company that is having such a huge impact on fixing a big problem like that. And from a hiring point of view as well, obviously you've expanded your team as well now, and what you look for in employees in the sustainability space.
Yeah, so in terms of the first question, if you see a problem that there isn't a solution, or you can't find it, you kind of assume that somebody must be doing it, or that it must be out there. But sometimes that isn't the case. So I suppose it is really defining the problem you're trying to solve. And in our case, it started very small. I mean, it didn't start thinking that we were going to, be a really big solution. We were literally starting with the farmers market on a Saturday, and that galvanized us into action to get contracts in place and think through the logistics. And then it really is going next to next to next. So it's important to have that vision of what's possible, but then you're literally breaking it down into tiny little pieces. And then you're kind of on this journey where you think once you get to that point, everything will be grand. And then you realize once you get that point, the mountain kind of gets a bit bigger. So I would say if you have an idea, I wouldn't be afraid to share it. Sometimes I meet people who have an idea and they're like, oh, I don't really want to tell you the detail. I don't want to go into the details or whatever, but actually talking to people and getting people to tell you it's a rubbish idea and not believing them is kind of part of the process. So if you have an idea, I would talk to as many people as possible. And I would just start something small to move you on, because I think in my experience, it's funny, you start something and then there's some energy behind it, pushing it along somewhere, and then more people get involved, and then you continue, it becomes more than the idea. So, and people add their energy to it. So I would say talk to people and start doing something around that idea. And it doesn't mean leaving your job straight away. I would agree with Ali around the turning a job green or dipping your toe in the water before actually taking the big plunge. And your second question there was about employees. So there is a lot of sustainability jobs out there now, and there is whatever role you're in currently has loads of transferable skills. So when we're looking for people to join the company, we love seeing corporate brands on their CVs. We love seeing experience in a broad variety of sectors, because we've loads of stakeholders. So we need to be able to understand where they're coming from. So I wouldn't be afraid applying for a sustainability job if you don't have a sustainability background. But I would be definitely being able to demonstrate why you're interested in sustainability in more, I suppose, not just I followed an Instagram page or I recycle more. I think the volunteering, the getting involved in something, the back to education is a good combination. So real life work experience and a real interest in sustainability is enough to get you in the door. And then just a word of caution as well, sometimes sustainability jobs, and I think Ali Sheridan talks a bit about this as well, just to be discerning when you're going for a job as well, because just working within sustainability in a big company is really hard, because you're trying to change behaviors. So you need to go in knowing that they're serious and you have support as well. So I would be, also do your due diligence about the roles you're applying for, and make sure that, what you have in your mind around what that job is versus what the day-to-day is are matched up, because there's a lot out there that is kind of sustainability related, but it's tagged on to another big, massive job, and you mightn't actually get to the sustainability piece.
Absolutely. Yeah, don't want to end up with 10 job titles and not getting started. Yeah. Brilliant. I'm friends with Ronan O'Dowd as well, and I find it really interesting now. He was saying in his last round of hirings, just an amazing fundraising, but that he was noticing there was loads of people coming from luxury brands trying to get into Thriftify, his amazing company now, which has all the charity shops online. So it's just really interesting to see where people's priorities are now moving around. So I think we're coming into a really interesting space. And I'm wondering, in terms of setting up businesses or campaigns, if there's been any different kind of supports, peers, or different organizations that have really helped any of you on that journey, if there's people who are listening who maybe need those different places to turn to and look beyond, say, maybe the DMs or the emails to reach out to, if there's different organizations, be it local support groups or anything else like that for businesses or for charities that you've all found helpful.
Well, in terms of women, I just remembered, because it's important, because we're talking about the women and sustainability, I suppose. But there is another Facebook group page called She Is Sustainable, and I guarantee there's a couple in the audience who may be part of that. Now, that's a group of about 290, 300 women, and they're all geared towards sustainability. A whole cross section of ages and different things they're involved with. But that's a nice community if you didn't know anybody and you wanted to know where to start, because a lot of them didn't know each other either. And we would have just met up for lunch in town and had a bit of crack and gotten to know each other and moved around tables and chairs and stuff. And it's a nice way to just meet your tribe, and develop a network, because it's really about developing a network of support. And that could be one anyway to start with.
Amazing. Pat, did you have one there?
I would say voice. I found voice very, very, very helpful throughout the years. I remember sitting at one talk a long time ago. I think it was like in EY. And I remember being like, oh, this is excellent, so I thought that was very good. And obviously Mindy being here, not saying that because of you, Mindy.
Thank you.
I really mean it. So I think it's a great place to start.
Thanks. And we're delighted to talk to people. I have people call me and ask me, I'm looking at something, I'm interested, and we're always happy to give advice. Also looking for volunteers from time to time. I was just writing down some things. I think getting involved in a charity is really important, depending on your interest. So if you're interested in wildlife, Birdwatch or Irish Wildlife Trust, or if you're interested in water, there are lots of water campaigns out there. If you're interested in the circular economy and waste, we're out there as well. But also there's small community groups. There's Zero Waste Rush, there's zero waste communities around the country. We were working with 7 communities in Cork, sustainable communities that they worked to get. We facilitated them and worked with them, so they've identified projects to do within their community. So, and also if you do have a good idea and you need a bit of money, a good place to go is to the environmental awareness officers within your local authority. They've got access to funds. Hopefully the environmental fund will open up again, but they fund local initiatives. So if you do have an idea, that's another place to go.
Amazing. And there's 2 things there in the chat box. There's people asking for the name of the Facebook group again. So it's She Is Sustainable Ireland, if anyone wants to find their tribe in there. And Eve Malone is saying Tidy Towns is your local community is a great first step into volunteering environmentally and sustainability. That was one of the things I found really inspiring over the last few years. Anytime I see a news story about something, I'm like, oh my God, that's awful, that's terrible. I go off and then I see there's loads of people already working on it, and I'm like, oh, amazing. So as much as it can get a bit overwhelming sometimes when we see the scale of, say, the biodiversity crisis, different things going on, it's really, really empowering to know that there's groups of really passionate people working on all of these things. So just before we talk about some of the things that you're all proudest of in your career so far, I would love to know how each of you deals with keeping your resilience in the climate space, because all of the issues that you're dealing with, they're so huge. I know a lot of people, because everything is so pressing and urgent with the climate crisis, can suffer burnout in this workspace. But I'd just love to know if there's anything, be it as simple as going out into the garden, which is what generally does it for me, a little bit of escapism, leaving the phone inside, going out and tending to my little vegetable patch and my plants. Is there anything like that that really kind of can bring you back from the brink, just a bit of self-care that helps you through anything like that when you get a bit on edge with all of the sustainability work?
I'll say, like, I am a glass half full or glass refillable, as I like to say. I try not to get too bogged down. Like, I'm going to read the news, and obviously we need to inform ourselves, but I'm not going to be, every day reading the same thing, dragging myself down. I want to read because I want to be informed and I want to understand what's going on. But at the same time, I think a lot of people, get paralyzed, right? We say, like, I hear a lot of like, oh, we're only a small country, I'm only one person. And I'm always saying, and what you're going to do, you're going to sit on your hands then, you know, like, this is not what we should be doing. So I love the idea of, and that's how we started at our house. You know, I love the idea of just looking around. Let me look after my own temple here. What can I do better? You know, what good looks like for me? You know, is it reducing my energy bills by going green? Is it reducing my plastic consumption by buying at refill shops? Is it whatever it is, you know, swapping personal care products? I love finding out about other things. When I feel overwhelmed and I feel like, oh my God, we're just going to die, you know, I'm like, no. What else can I do? What else can I do? And you'll always find something, because none of us here are perfect, right? We're not doing 100%, because 100% is unattainable. It's not a word we use. Perfection is not a word we use around here. I always say that, and it's true. So there's always something you can do better. And by researching and getting to know small businesses that are trying to help, you know, I get great joy of talking to people and just be like, but tell me what else you do, and let's exchange ideas, instead of just sitting there thinking we're doomed, you know, it's over.
Amazing. Yeah, I always tell myself you can do anything, but not everything. And absolutely, I think any kind of action that you can take is definitely a good way to stave off eco-anxiety or anything else like that. Does anyone have anything to add to that one?
Yeah, that was a great response, Pat. I am also really energized, and we're 10 years in, and obviously the stresses and strains of getting things up and running, and in this space, like, funding is a big challenge, or like an ever-present challenge. So in terms of that, like, you just have to, you know, do your best, and it's all the kind of standard work-life balance and all that. But in terms of the climate anxiety, like, I'm actually really energized by the potential future that we could all have. Like, it is a better future. You know, and I think the war in Ukraine has shown us, you know, how reliant we are on, you know, unsustainable fuel sources. So, like, in my case, I'm really inspired by what you can do with surplus food. Like, there's nothing I get a bigger kick out of than using absolutely everything in the fridge. You know, and I'm really inspired by, at a macro scale, like, what the world could look like if we actually did achieve that more sustainable world. So I would also be the refillable half glass full kind of person in terms of climate anxiety, because the future, obviously there's going to be changes for us, but they can be really positive changes. It can be slowing down, it can be producing less, it can be consuming less, you know, reevaluating our priorities. So I will be very inspired by the future if we can make it happen. You know, it's not that I have an unrealistic expectations of what's ahead of us, but I don't think it's kind of that valuable to dwell on that, really.
Fantastic. Just see one more there in the chat box, just asking about the Facebook page again. It's She is Sustainable Ireland, was that one?
I'd just like to follow on with the ladies as well there and say that I think sometimes out of problems that we see, well, there's always a solution, but there's an opportunity. And one thing that has definitely come out of COVID, and it was extremely difficult managing Conscious Cup campaign during that time, because cafes pretty much shut down everywhere, accepting reusables on pretty much a bit of a myth, you know. So it was very difficult to manage, and it was very hard to bring reuse back. It took time, but what has come about as a result of COVID, as a result of what's happened in Rotterdam, with, you know, boats not being able to dock, with supply chain disruption happening everywhere, with the Panama or the Suez Canal, I should say, you know, all of these factors culminate in pressure on being more innovative and creating solutions geared towards a circular economy. You think of containers trying to come in, and there's a massive shortage of containers, logistics all under total pressure, all because of everything coming together. So it's all pushing us to look towards reusables and, you know, more local source products as well. That whole supply chain disruption is forcing the circular economy, probably quicker than we ever seen it accelerate now. So you kind of have to think, right, there is something that's going to come out of it, and maybe we reduce our costs at the same time economically. Because another thing that was happening, I know during COVID, with coffee shops, for example, trying to import cups from China, you know, or from wherever. The pressure was huge. And I went into one of the petrol stations one day. I was talking to one of the managers, and we were just talking about cups. And of course, I had my reusable in my hand. And he explained to me that they were at the stage that they couldn't get any 12-ounce cups, which is the most popular size. So they could resort to using 16-ounce, paying more. Costs were all going up. So this is all forcing innovation. And I think there's a good opportunity there for businesses. And you're certainly seeing it, you know, across the board, that they're trying to find solutions as well that are more environmentally friendly and reduce our carbon.
Fantastic. Even back to your point there about the excitement of what we can have, I think Christiana Figueres and Tom Rivikarnik's book, The Future We Choose, is a brilliant read for anyone looking to be inspired in that way. I think the first half of it was all the negatives if we don't change, and the second half is the absolute utopia we can achieve if we do move towards renewables and a circular economy and everything else. And it's just really, really inspiring if anyone needs a little pick me up in the space at all. And we might move on then to any career highs that you're so proud of in the sustainability space. Even just to jump straight back to you, I was listening again to that thing with Matt Cooper that you did, and I heard that it's 150 million meals that you guys have managed to divert to places that would have gone to waste otherwise, but to people now through what you've done over the last 10 years. Is that just a mind-boggling stat to you?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit too big that your brain can't wrap your head around it. So yeah, it's been incredible. It's really brilliant, and I suppose it's only the tip of the iceberg. So just to kind of bring it back, like last year in Ireland, we redistributed about 3,100 tons of food, which was a lot, but it's 0.33% of what we waste of food waste in Ireland.
Oh.
So while we are really proud of the achievements, and a lot of the scale has come from the technology expanding outside of Ireland. So the scale of the UK, and we're working in Czech Republic and Slovakia where they're using our technology platform. A lot of the really big scale is from there. And in an Irish context, it's probably, you know, the likes of farmers and distributors and manufacturers that we're looking to get more on board at this stage. So yeah, we're really proud of what we've achieved as a team and with all the business, all our partners and our charities. But the numbers is probably what really inspires me about that, is that it's like a local solution to a global problem. So like behind those 150 million meals are like thousands of store managers, thousands of community organizations, small donations. You know, we're talking a couple of kgs on any given evening. So what's inspiring and continues to inspire me about that is like it's a very local action by, you know, people within all of our communities, happening every evening to culminate in that volume. So that's really inspiring, seeing people coming together through that. So if that the career highlight or an ongoing thing that keeps me really motivated is actually like hearing from what the charities are doing with the surplus food, the amazing things that happen when you bring like the food industry and the charity sector together. So like some examples will be, there's a family resource centre up in the Inishowen Peninsula, and they're really remote, but they're connected with their local Lidl, their Tesco, and we would deliver up to them from time to time. But they've developed a whole education program around it. So in their after schools club, they all come together at the Ready Steady Cook. They leave stuff out, and during COVID, then they actually set up a pantry where they were using the stock that was donated as kind of the base stock, but then people were bringing their own stuff. So whoever had the excess rhubarb, whoever had eggs, and they actually just put a container out the front of the Family Resource Centre. And during COVID, then it became just a place to go to share recipes, to, you know, to say, what are you going to do with all the surplus bread? You know, all of that kind of stuff. So that's like, for me, as a culture from East Galway, the stuff that's happening on a local level is really what continues to inspire me. And then taking it at a global scale, that's happening now in Czech Republic and Slovakia, all kind of different takes on the same problem. But I suppose that's the kind of inspiring bit, is more, you know, that we brought together people and given this second chance to this food that would have otherwise go to be wasted. But like, I really think the magic is when the food gets out there and gets that second life. It's really powerful.
Amazing. With Even's food waste stats there, Mindy, your quote, "A lot done, a lot more to do," is jumping to mind.
Oh God, yeah. Me and Bernie Ahern. Just the highlights, just in the last few years, we've been working a lot on policy, because it's really important for, you know, for us to do our bit, but we really need to make sure the policy is there to make sure that industry and businesses do their bit. And oftentimes they won't do that unless they're required to by law. So we were working very closely with our Break Free from Plastic group, and we pushed through the Single-Use Plastic Directive. That was several years ago, and that's why we don't have plastic straws or cutlery or plates or stirrers. That is something that I'm very proud that passed. It was record time that it passed. We were also instrumental in getting a deposit return scheme here. We've been fighting that for 20 years for Voice. I grew up in the state of Michigan, and we've had that since the 1970s. Ireland used to have a deposit return scheme for glass bottles, but we've been fighting this for years and years, and we finally won. I think the Single-Use Plastic Directive helped us. So that will be in place hopefully by 2024, but it's in progress. It's been signed by the minister, so that's in progress. So watch this space. We also, you know, Voice was one of the leaders in the plastic bag levy back in 2002. That's what we pushed for. We're pushing on the latte levy. So there are a lot of things that we're working politically and policy wise, but also for me, how you know, I'm also proud of his. Voice was a very small, we're still a small organization. We started in, you know, 25 years ago with one part-time coordinator. And now we have 8 to 10 people. We are, you know, working in so many different avenues. We find the government, you know, 10 years ago, they wouldn't talk to us. And now I can call up people in the department. I can chat with them. They agree with me. I have good relationships. We have a very receptive minister. So we're seeing the tide turn. And I like to think that we had an impact in that, but we are seeing change, which is fantastic.
Amazing. Yeah, the public perceptions awareness and the shift in that over the last, even just the last 2 to 3 years, I think has been seismic. So long may that continue. And Pat, any standout highlights for you?
Like as Mindy said, you know, the same way Voice has started with a part-time, I suppose, coordinator, Reusey started with a just new mom. I launched it 5 days before the baby was born, so I launched both projects very close one to another. And but you know, seeing it grow from a website with 30 little products, and you know, all based on my own experience, I guess, to all what we have today. We have over 1,200 products in offer. And then, you know, being invited in by, you know, obviously these big retailer monsters like Brown Thomas and Arnott's, you know, can you join us on our journey? And feeling like we're part of this transformation of making sustainability a bit more mainstream is a big deal for us. Joyce's Supermarket in Galway, there you go, you know, another one. And now, like, we have something else coming for Christmas. Again, it's all to do with mainstream. How do we make these products convenient, accessible, affordable? You know, if you look at supermarkets today, obviously there's tons of options inside a supermarket, but how many are actually sustainable, properly sustainable? I'm not talking about microfiber cloths being called e-cloths, you know, and that sort of thing. Like not many. So I think the key to me, and something I would be personally very proud, is to be able to make sustainability a bit more, I suppose, mainstream, and bring it into places where people are more familiar with, rather than having to visit a tiny little shop. But if I may say, one of my biggest I suppose, proud moments was when we had a Halloween event at our shop in Foxrock Village, and 2 kids, I actually have a picture of them on Instagram. They arrived dressed up as Reezy shopkeepers because and their moms, 2 different moms, they came in and they said, look, local moms, they were like, they absolutely love this. They are, teaching us all about recycling and sustainability. And they keep saying, Mom, why are we in the big supermarket? Why can't we go shop at Reezy? And I was like, oh, I'm so proud. Because they're really little. So if they grow up like this, we're good, right? Yeah.
And yeah, I think one of my highlights so far in the sustainability side of things has been the next generation. I got to host an amazing sustainable fashion show with Green Schools there a few months back, and they taught all of these kids how to upcycle clothes, how to shop secondhand, how to reuse. One of them, the sewing skills on show were incredible, had made curtains into something I would wear to the Met Gala. It was spectacular. So the next generation already knowing how to do all that, incredible stuff. And Circa, I might move to look into the future with you and how you best think we can move towards a sustainable future. I know there's so much going on with packaging at the moment that you're involved with. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I suppose one of the, just highlighting something that was key and quite pivotal back in 2019 when the Circular Economy Advisory Group was going, I made the suggestion that I always felt like what you touched on there, Pat and Fionnuala, kids and teenagers, that's a really great area to tap into where you can change behaviors at scale. So I made the suggestion that we look at how we can transform events and festivals and concerts. And it is one of the key areas where we can really deep dive into single use and cups, for instance, follow like what the rest of Europe are doing. But obviously we are an island and we have to keep that in mind. We have to keep in mind the economics behind everything. So I think that suggestion has actually resulted in a whole new project. It also resulted in us running a pilot with Native Events back in when the Single-Use Plastics Directive was transposed into law, and Royal Hospital Kilmainham, as I touched on earlier, running an actual pilot to eliminate single-use and then producing an actual full report with data, because that's what we need. We can't really talk about the emotion of sustainability. We have to build in really effective data that shows that this is working and that we can push on with those ideas then and scale them up even further rather than relying on just emotion. So I'm thrilled to say that that suggestion has now resulted in an industry-wide focus group with Native Events, and that kicks off next week. So there'll be a deep dive with key stakeholders to assess how you can really transform the whole events industry. And that has a great way of reaching, not just attendees at festivals, but the music people. And as you know, your partner is a music performer, so they have the ability to change behaviors as well. You just look at Coldplay and the work that they do too. So it's a great arena to bring people on that right journey. And then in terms of packaging, there's so much going on. Like Mindy, you know all about the background of policy that's been driven towards change there. I absolutely am really enjoying my new role with Repack. I'm there now 4 months, and the work that I'm doing around the area of the plastic pledge is phenomenal. And I think sometimes people don't really know exactly what Repack do. But one of the key aspects to the plastic pledge that we work on, and there are 5 key objectives, and the number 1 is reduction. So, recycling does have its place, but reduction and always moving up that waste hierarchy where you can. But we will not be able to eliminate recycling. It has its place. It's extremely important to keep it in mind that, you use a systems approach to everything rather than a materials approach, because sometimes swapping paper for plastic is actually far worse. So you have to take it in context, how you use the products, upstream and downstream, and how it's going to be disposed of. So I think there's a lot of work for us to do. Thrilled to say I see some amazing work going on from the members across, with 3,500 members, but 142 signed up to the Plastic Pledge, and some doing really phenomenal work in very challenging times.
Amazing. Yeah, I think we can often forget reduce reuse, recycle. We just go, the recycling bin, it's all done, it's fine, it's finished. But yeah, and it's fascinating what you're saying there about swapping things, because I think I've definitely been guilty of looking at this in a really oversimplified way before and going, no more plastic ever, it's terrible, it's all made out of oil, even though it's not necessarily all anymore, but the majority still is. But I think even it was yourself and Iseult I was listening to talking about how it can cause more food waste if some food packaging is in plastic, whether that's on meats or different things. So there is necessary plastics is something I've been learning recently, not to be as polarized in my views. Just a message in there from Jennifer Thornton. She said, thanks a million for all your insights. Fascinating journeys you've all had. After buying and selling my kids' clothes in Facebook groups, they now seem to have been relegated to fast fashion. So I'm working on a startup to create a pre-loved online platform for teens and Gen Zs, teaching them sustainable fashion doesn't have to cost the earth. You're also inspiring. Thank you. Marvelous. She mentions festivals there as well. And yeah, it was absolutely magical, even just at Electric Picnic. Avid festival goer here and event goer, but just to see all the steps that are being made there so that we're not all wading through seas of single-use discarded cups at the end of every night is brilliant. I'm aware that the time is flying by, so I'm going to jump now to the circular economy and maybe just the things that you're most excited about happening in that space. I know for me, some of the things that I've been seeing used, which I'm just absolutely mind blown by. There's an Irish company, Samplet, that are using apple waste to make shoes. So cool. There's another one, Mamuko, down in Kinsale, and they're using like old sailboats. The sails off them, my boating lingo, not very good. You can tell I don't sail, but they're making them into really, really cool bags. And then Jiminy are using bouncy castles to make school bags as well. So I'm just wondering if there's anything like that that you've seen that's kind of really lit a spark inside you, got you really excited for the possibilities about what's to come with the circular economy.
Well, personally, if I can start, like I would mention something that Evan will be very familiar with, but cream of the crop, gelato. Giselle's a fellow Brazilian, started this business. Basically, she gets surplus food. People were thinking at the beginning, you know, oh, it's leftover. It's like, it's not leftover. It's just bananas that don't look pretty enough to be in a supermarket shelf, which is a shame, of course. She's taken that sort of thing and making incredible ice cream and some banana like treats as well now, which is amazing. And, you know, I would be very much like a food waste warrior. You know, we're making pesto, let's use the stalks. You know, you're like, use everything as much as possible. So when I saw that coming off, I was like, this is amazing, you know, fascinating.
Yeah, she's brilliant. So if anybody hasn't tried her ice cream, it's delicious, and the bananitas are really good. She's working with Feist to create these bananitas that are covered in dark chocolate. So if you keep them in the fridge, especially, they're really, really good snack to have, and they're just so good. And kind of what I'm really inspired is like Giselle is doing that. And then we launched the Food Cloud Kitchen recently, which is basically, we would have a certain amount of waste in our warehouses that wouldn't be suitable for redistribution to charities. Sometimes it's like, you know, like randomly we get all this organic vegetables, and like, but some of the peas needs to be podded. So it's like highly valuable, highly organic product, but like charities just don't have time for that. So we will be taking product and using it within the Food Cloud Kitchen. And I suppose the aims of that are reducing our own waste and then inspiring the charities about what they could be doing, and then also raising awareness. So it's kind of, I suppose, the whole, for me, what's really inspiring about the circular economy is around using, in terms of food, using food and turning it into something that would, you know, adding value and then extending in life. So cream of the crop is a perfect example. Those bananas or the fruit she's using in her gelatos, you know, have a couple of days on it. She's processing it, and then it has a year. You know, you could have that for a year in your freezer. So there's loads of ideas like that internationally. And, you know, I suppose there's some of the ideas we'd love to bring to Ireland that we've seen work in other countries as well. So Pat, you stole my my inspiration of things that are really exciting, but she's doing brilliant. So if anybody is looking for a nice gelato, and she also delivers to your house.
I'll be ordering some for after now.
Yeah,
I hope on a bike.
yeah.
Present as well. I got them as a present, actually. It's a really nice gift to send someone to.
Very nice. Yes, very good surprise for a weekend. Oh, if I may, I'm going to mention as well Nunaya. It's an Irish skincare brand. All
Gorgeous
the
product.
packaging now is coming out, and it's made from mycelium, which is basically mushroom processed. It looks like foam, you know, styrofoam. That same like fluffy, hard fluffiness, if that makes any sense. But it's completely compostable. You can literally plant that thing and it will disappear. So it is fascinating. It's no cardboard, no plastic, no nothing. It's mushroom. And then I'll do a shameless plug here. We partner with the Dundrum Town Centre, and we're taking from them all of their shoe boxes. It's a lot of boxes, but we use them on online orders to try and give that box an extra life, you know, and sometimes customers bring it back to us and say, are you in need of boxes? And we always say yes, because we're box ladies, you know, not cap ladies, we're box ladies. And then they come back with our sticker. It's like, oh, these are from some orders. And we're like, wow, they're coming back third lifetime. So, and you're very grateful, obviously, to everybody in Dundrum for having agreed of doing that, you know.
It's a fab way to keep them going. Claudia has messaged in, Peanatext, a company using pineapple leaves to create sustainable leather, a great example of the circular economy in action and supporting their local farming industry. Magic, all of these different creative ideas that people are coming up with. Pat, you touched on it earlier, and just before we get into the Q&A, people can start firing questions in there before we start into that, if you have any. You talked about the mainstreaming of sustainability with your amazing partnerships with Brian Thomas, with Arnott, you're talking about Dundrum there. And I think it's so valuable, having gone into my quitting fast fashion journey back in 2018 and having different editors and stuff be like, what is sustainable? Are you wearing like coffee sacks, like black sacks? Are you buying stuff from charity shops and they assumed everything that came from charity shops would smell, or just all of the different mad assumptions people had about it? I think it's so important to be just bringing all of the sustainable products into these luxury spaces and really getting people to equate sustainability with luxury, with the health of the planet, all in the one space. I think it's so, so important, because to me, there's nothing more luxurious than clean air, proper healthy food, everything like that, clean, pristine places to live in. I think those are the most important, valuable things we could possibly have. But I'd love to hear, with all of you having been in the space for so long, your opinions on how the discourses around sustainability have evolved and the kind of place that we're in now. From where I'm sitting, it looks like we're in a really positive place as people are trying to make change happen at the moment. And so I'm wondering if anyone has thoughts on where we've landed.
So I'll give my 2 cents then. From a retailer point of view, you know, I think things are definitely better. People are choosing better. Better is becoming more affordable and accessible and, you know, convenient. So from that point of view, I do feel that. I remember our first Christmas, I was going from market to market in 2018, and people were looking at, you know, water bottles or whatever, soaps, and looking and it's like, yeah, that's nice. Yeah, lovely, lovely. And that was that. Fast forward to last year, we had people coming in with lists saying, I need to buy a present, and I'm going to buy everything from a sustainable business. Either it's you or someone else, but can you help me? And I was like, thank you. So from that point of view, definitely huge shift, I would say. And then from my strategist role, you know, I'm turning down work at this stage. So businesses from small, tiny, like yoga studios in the middle of Gorey, all the way to like a big developer, they're coming in there like, what else can we do? Can you help us here? So I think there's a big shift. It's no longer a nice to have, it's a must. And I think people realize with policy coming through and all of the changes that we will have to implement, no matter what, otherwise you will lose your staff, your clients, your reputation, everything's going to go down. So personally, again, positive refillable glass from my side.
Brilliant.
Can I come in for just a sec? I think one thing for me is there's a lot of awareness out there. It's kind of like smoking. You know, you're aware that it's bad for you, but you're still doing it. And so I think a lot of people are aware about the climate and aware of our consumption habits, aware of this, but they don't change their behavior. So what we need to do is change that awareness into action. And also, I think there's needs to be a real nexus. A lot of people look at in a siloed mentality that the circular economy, yeah, it's recycling, but there's nothing to deal with the climate. You know, up to 50, nearly 50% of the stuff, 50% of the emissions, the carbon emissions are associated with making and consuming stuff. So there is that nexus that we need to get that message across, that if you're buying something new, you have to look upstream and see where it came from, what were the energy to make something. So I think we need to get that message out there, but also we have to be really careful. I'm sorry to be a downer here, but we have to be really careful about greenwashing. A lot of companies out there, I'm saying, companies, oh, recycling is great, but as Sorka said, we have to move up that waste hierarchy, and true circular economy is something that can be used over and over again, not just recycled once, but can be recycled over and over again. And so we also need to challenge the ownership model. Do we need to buy a drill? Do we need to buy a bike? Can we borrow it? Can we be in the Dublin bike scheme? Can we do co-car? Do we need a car? Can we, everyone's moving towards the EVs right now. Can we instead be in a car sharing scheme, or use public transportation, or get on your bike? So I think we need to look at our consumption habits and see where we can reduce our consumption. And therefore you're reducing the associated emissions as well.
Fantastic. I've just done my master's thesis on how influencers can become more eco-friendly. And a lot of it is that moving away from pushing consumption on everyone all the time. And one of the things I feel like the discourses in a lot of ways that I've seen online, they've kind of changed from people who are really in the climate space. We have our cognitive dissonance broken down about how awful fashion is. And then we feel the need to tell everyone and shame people. But now it's more like, oh, no, I'm going to support you as opposed to shame you on coming on this journey with me, and we're going to go secondhand shopping, or we're going to rent clothes, and we're going to embrace new to me instead of new. And that's kind of the messaging that I've seen be really functional and people get really involved with and really excited about. So yeah, it's definitely though a really, really big thing to peel ourselves away from consumption, because as we know, there's millions and billions and trillions spent on making us think that we need all this new stuff that we don't. Does anyone else want to come in on that as well?
Just, I suppose, in the last 10 years, what we have seen when we started out would have been the main kind of response we got was, what if somebody gets sick? What if the food ends up in the wrong hands? Like, they were the main challenges that we had to solve before we even spoke to anybody. And now we don't get asked those questions, especially with retailers. They are saying the worst case scenarios, we waste it. So even if it goes and there's like new apps, consumer facing apps like Olio and Too Good To Go, even if the worst thing is for it to be wasted if it's perfectly good. So that has been quite a shift from, I would prefer to waste it than it got in the wrong hands or somebody got sick, to, I'm going to try my best to get it consumed. And if those other things happen, we'll do our best to avoid those things happening. But we still wouldn't see that as much in the supply chain. So further back from retailers, it's still, we are still relying on goodwill. We're relying on like a warehouse manager who's really, sick of throwing stuff in the bin. We're not, it's not embedded in their processes because there isn't a financial incentive not to throw it in the bin. So like, while we've definitely seen progress, and I think the retailers who are consumer facing are the ones that are changing quickest, like the whole kind of what happens behind the scenes is a slower game. So that's what we're seeing in kind of practice in terms of the mainstream changes.
We ordered a survey during the pandemic, right? For like end consumers, right? And we found out this whole, like as Mindy was saying, the action value gap, right? So I say I want a better planet, I say I want to help and all of those things, but then when it comes to day to day, I'm busy, I'm in a rush, I'm just going to buy the packaged food, I'm just going to buy new because it's too much hassle to go to a secondhand shop, etc., etc. So, that's what we found out. They understand there is a problem. The problem is kind of clear, not really, but there and thereabouts, and they want to help. However, don't make me go out of my way. So until it's mainstream, in a nutshell, that's what the survey came out with, you know, until it goes mainstream. And that's why mainstream is such an important, I think personally, point. I think it's going to be very hard for us to get everybody on board because it's very fragmented. You know, you have government campaigns saying recycle. And then on the other hand, you have all these people saying, don't recycle, refuse. Refuse is number one, rethink. So it's also fragmented until we get like a united voice. I don't know, a united message. I think there's a lot of work behind still for us to do.
I think we have to use systems thinking.
That's what I say.
I think it really comes down to systems thinking because, like what Mindy was saying earlier, we were always talking about the attention behavior gap that we have. And even we would meet people like who are really, really passionate about doing the right thing, but sometimes they just can't. So how do we create that infrastructure for people to do the right thing and make it as convenient as possible? And then we get to scale, we get to that shift that happens. And that's the difficulty, because when you're a business as well, starting out like with a new idea, it can be very hard to get to that tilting point where you shift over to scale. So you really have to have a collaborative process of all of the stakeholders involved so that they're all pushing from the different angles for that shift to happen. And then you get that flood of convenience happening. And that's why I think focusing on, you know, systems thinking is really important, because you have to build in the economics and the culture of people is very important. Like what works in Germany or what works in the States doesn't always work in Ireland either. So, you know, what works in Italy or Spain or New Zealand, we have to really think about, right, what's going to work in our country, given that we're an island and given that we, you know, we share a border and, you know, our culture is different perhaps to different things. So you have to use that systems thinking and be creative about finding solutions to get to scale. But like that, I think we need to have less of a materials focus on things. We need to be thinking about reduction of whatever that material is. Doesn't matter what it is. It's a reduction of it and using and extracting the value as much as possible. I think we all know what we have to do. It's finding the solutions. That's what's more challenging, I suppose, and getting them out there, getting them.
Yeah, and making it the default for people who don't live and breathe all of this as much as we do. There's a question here from Rebecca, and then I'll go to one from Claudia. And if anyone else has any more, you can fire them in real quick because we only have 11 minutes left. Rebecca says, I work in childcare and the amount of waste that comes in from a single day would shock you. Now, although we are dedicated to recycling anything and everything that comes into our establishment, clothes, compost and cleanups of the town with all the children, there does seem to still be full bins at the end of the day. I find when it comes to lunches being sent in, there's so many plastic wrappers in the lunches. Also, the colouring pens and markers seem to waste in one use. Is there a better use for the likes of these products? We don't generally buy them all too often because they run out so quickly and it's quite expensive. But is there somewhere I can get information on better uses for the likes of lunch waste, the bar wrapper packets, yogurt pots, other than an art or holders for paints? Excuse me. Pat, you might be best placed to answer that. I know you have some incredible products that replace tin foil, cling film, anything like that. Is there anything jumping out at you there to help with that?
Okay, so I might be shooting myself in the foot here, but I always say I'm trying to get myself out of a job by going mainstream. So here we go. Use what you already have. Use containers. Everybody has Tupperwares at home. You know, if you have cereal bags, just use that and reuse those cereal bags as your sandwich bag. You know, and the same goes for any sort of bag you come across. Like if you buy, what's the name? Like sliced bread, the bag is left at the end. Reuse that bag. We don't have to throw those things away. You can reuse. You wash and it's brand new. It's only a sandwich going in there. It's not like, you know, wedding dinner. So I would always start with what you have. The same goes for your cutlery, for your cups. We all have cutlery at home, unless something's, I'm not seeing something here. I hope you do. You know, you all have cups, you all have mugs. Again, Tupperwares, bags, tote bags. Who doesn't have a tote bag nowadays? It's coming out of our ears. So just use what you have. You know, obviously, like when we were during the pandemic, I got tons of messages from moms, school workers, crash workers saying, you know, Tuzla or someone was telling them, and turns out it wasn't Tuzla at all, you know, to use Ziploc bags, one every day different. And I was like, are you going to wash your child's jacket every day? You might not even washing their child's hair every day. Are you going to tell me that a lunch bag will make a difference? No. So we need to be a bit more like common sense, guys. Use what you have. You don't have to go out of your way to buy stuff. If you do feel like buying stuff, there's sandwich bags, there's beeswax wraps, they're incredible solutions. But what you need is already upstairs or downstairs in your kitchen, whatever you are, you know, just be a bit more creative. Think outside of the box, you know, the brand new box.
Yeah, and maybe even a little local to that childcare setting, like a mini latte levy. Not that the kids will be running around with coffees, but whether it's for reusable cups or bottles or anything like that, that they can encourage, maybe little an information email or leaflet back to the parents about the direction they're trying to go in, could make a big difference there. Maybe. Does anyone else want to come in on that one as well? Fab, I'll move on.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, just from my daughter is in a childcare, you know, well, she's gone into school now, but an ECCE, and what they did was actually got the parents involved in, you know, their ethos around reuse and recycling and all of that kind of stuff. So it depends on what kind of childcare setting it is, but if you can, it's almost like a green team. If you have a parents council and things like that, you can get a network within the parents, and I suppose then it makes them start to think a little bit differently. But you have to kind of involve, if the source of the waste is coming in with the kids, then, you know, maybe a green team with the parents committee or whatever. It depends if that's the case in this setting, but that might be an approach either.
Fabulous. And then Claudia is saying, hi all, thanks for an amazing panel. My question is, what are your opinions on the idea of the eco-gender gap, i.e. the sustainability efforts seem marketed as the duty of women, not men? Thank you. The session here today has been super inspiring for me as a soon-to-be graduate interested in a career in sustainability. Congratulations on your soon-to-be graduation. That's very exciting. Does anyone want to come in on that, the idea of the eco-gender gap? No men here to represent their thoughts on that.
Well, in Food Cloud, we actually have, I think we're about 50-50 or 55 men, 45% women. But we would find kind of applicants for roles and things like that. There are a lot more female candidates applying for jobs. It does seem to be, maybe it's a maternal instinct or something that is stronger, that there's more of a, you know, a need to act or do something. I'm not sure. I probably haven't thought deeply enough about that question, if any of the other panelists have thought deeply, but I'm definitely seeing there's more representation of women working in sustainability than there is in men, I think.
Maybe just Mother Earth, you know, that we are, that is
Father Earth, and we'll get way more men in.
What's it like in your course, for instance, Fionnuala? What's the divide of, you know, people coming up through education and sustainability then?
I would say off the top of my head, it was about 60-40 women to men. There were a lot of men in there, and they're coming in from a really wide variety of industry backgrounds. The space I'd be most familiar with, and it's definitely overwhelmingly female at the moment, and I'm crying out for fellas to do more in the space, is sustainable fashion. Like, I know so many guys who would love to buy really, really cool secondhand stuff. There's not as many cool vintage pop-up places for fellas. There's not as many cool little Instagram pages you can follow for swap shops and different things like that. The women that I do know, like the amazing gals who do the Useless Project, they do specifically male events that will get more guys down to do it. But I don't know if that's like men not participating because they don't see other men participating. I don't really know. I can't speak to that. But yeah, I've definitely seen more women involved in the space than men in that regard anyway.
But even if you look at, you know, the rewear campaigns that pop up from time to time, secondhand September now, you know, I have a talk around fast fashion, and one of the things I put up is always like, make rewear great again. And the examples you can find online, if you Google there, you know, celebrities rewearing outfits, it's only going to be women. You know, I went great length. I had to go through great lengths to find a picture of Joaquin Phoenix re-wearing his suit in different events, because it's not pushed as much, I believe. I don't know. I think we make the purchases, we drive the decisions at home, in the sense of what are we buying, what does the family need, or what do we need. So we are the drivers of, like, you know, we might not be making the money. There might be, like, you know, stay-at-home moms, etc., but we are deciding what comes in. So I think that's why women are so into it. And then when it comes to sustainable fashion, I completely agree. You know, I was writing a piece about sustainable fashion for men, and I was trying to find one place to rent clothes for men, one place. And I could only find Bond Brothers. You know, couldn't find anywhere else where men can buy nice clothes, different types of suits in Ireland. Isn't that crazy?
That's mad. And I think that a lot of that is kind of down to the catch-22 of, we have been more heavily targeted by fast fashion brands up to this point. So we've been more indoctrinated into wear something once, never wear it again. God forbid to be seen the same outfit twice. And so there's much less of a deal for men to peel themselves back out of that mentality, because they never really got entrenched in that mentality, I think, in so many ways. But yeah, if anyone is listening or has partners or brothers or anything listening, lovely male rental clothes shops would be so welcome. If we've no other questions, I think that's us done. There's a message there from Rebecca, says a French company called Picture makes clothes with reusable plastic. I must check them out. I haven't heard of them yet. Fantastic. Thank you so much to our marvelous panelists for joining me tonight. I could talk to you all day about the incredible careers you have and all of the amazing work you will no doubt go on to do. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm sure if you have any other questions, you can reach out to everyone. And thank you for the lovely messages coming into the chat now. And of course, thank you to Fingal County Council for organising this as part of Dublin Climate Action Week. There's absolutely loads of amazing events going on, so do be sure. Lovely stuff. Who's our little final guest there at the final moment? I love to see it. Thank you so much. That's it from us now. Have a wonderful evening and enjoy the rest of Dublin Climate Action Week.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks. Bye.